How does the water quality of the Narellan Creek impact the region's biodiversity? All animals have specific conditions in their environment that must be met in order to inhabit and reproduce in that area. Aquatic bird species are highly dependable on the water quality of the creek or river they reside near in numerous ways. This includes protection where they raise their young, as well as a food and water source. It is apparent that there is a lack of aquatic birds in the Narellan region in comparison to those viewed and documented in the Hawkesbury Nepean zones. It is possible that this is due to the water quality of the surrounding rivers and creeks, especially if they are in poor condition. The aim of this study is to determine whether the water quality of the Narellan Creek impacts the presence of aquatic birds in the region, thus detrimentally affecting the overall biodiversity. The objectives of the project include determining the water quality of the Narellan Creek and then relating this to the bird species observed in the physical observations. These results will then be compared to those of the Hawkesbury Nepean River from other studies in order to draw conclusions. Strategies will also be proposed if necessary in order to preserve and enhance the biodiversity of the region. This study does not require a great deal of equipment to complete it. This is due to being limited by the coronavirus at the current time. Therefore, the decision was made to no longer do the water samples due to accurate testing being unavailable. The observations will only require transport to the site and a pair of binoculars for better viewing. A field guide may also be used if there is difficulty in identifying the species cited. In terms of the literary resources required and studied, the WSU library is used in order to collect and examine these previous experiments. The water parameters that will be referred to in this project include the pH, turbidity, nutrient concentration, dissolved oxygen, and temperature. Macrophyte populations will also be studied due to the abundance of these plants being highly dependent on the water quality of the creek or river. It is evident that turbidity, nutrient concentration, as well as other water parameters impact the growth of these plants in the region, thus impacting other species, as these macrophytes are a food source and hiding spots for numerous other animals. It has been shown in previous studies that declines in these populations of these aquatic plants have been due to the urbanization as well as poor water quality. Therefore, in this study, I will attempt to compare and relate these parameters in order to determine whether it is just one contributor or a group of contributors that are affecting the overall environment surrounding the creek. The observations that I will be doing will involve 20-minute long sit and observe periods where I will record all of the bird species sighted in the observational area. This will occur twice a week, currently on Thursdays and Sundays, and will take place around 1 p.m. for consistency in the results. Due to weather being a contributing factor, as the area is not under cover, I will strive to complete a minimum of 5 weeks of observations, thus being 10 in total. The data will then be recorded in Excel in order to complete data analysis and collaborate a table or graph in order to demonstrate the results. The following slide is an example of what the observations include and what is The site I have selected is located in Kirkham, New South Wales, and is at a bridge located on a semi-rural road. The creek has tall reeds that line the riverbed that many species would use for protection and nesting. There are also tall trees lining one side of the creek, which provide shade and nesting areas for a range of animals as well. The area is semi-rural and therefore quiet and is surrounded by large open paddocks. The road, however, is 80 kilometres and a country road, and thus cars speed past regularly, which can cause animals to disperse or be reluctant to occupy the area. This is a Google Maps images snapshot of Narellan Creek with a pinpoint for where the observations are taking place. These photographs were taken at the observation point where every sighting will be recorded. There will not be a great deal of data analysis in this project due to being unable to do my own water testing and sampling. Therefore, the only data analysis will be finding the average of the presence of each bird species at the site, as well as grouping these individuals into whether they are terrestrial or aquatic. I will, however, be gathering previously published data and figures for the water quality of the Narellan Creek, as well as the Nepean and Hawkesbury River, in order to compare these conditions of these water bodies to their bird species residing in the region. Strategies will be proposed if necessary at the end of the report, dependent on whether the water quality is poor and if it is thus detrimentally impacting the biodiversity. Example strategies include raising awareness to the community about the problem, whether this is posting to community boards, charity events to raise money for further research, flyers being put into letterboxes, or library and school talks. Other strategies that may be appropriate are regular testing of the region in order to prepare for drastic water quality changes, minimizing the amount of pollution in the area, as well as increased water treatment. So far, I have completed 2 weeks of observations, that being 4 observations altogether, and have continued to research the effect of a creek or river's water quality on the surrounding environment in the specific regards to the biodiversity of the region. I have started collecting the recent water sample results of organisations such as Sydney Water in order to utilise these figures for the discussion of water quality that will later take place in the report. These parameters will then be measured and compared to the ANZAC guidelines in order to determine whether the water quality was poor at the Narellan Creek. I have also started researching the optimal ranges of the water parameters that the bird species I have already observed are able to endure. This is in order to later draw conclusions whether the birds present currently are best suited to the water quality results last published, and if this therefore relates to why there is an absence of certain other species. This is a list of references that I have utilised in my literary review, as well as some that I will be utilising later on in the report as well. Thank you for listening.